October 15th, 2024. Well, the campaign is developing into a battle of surrogates and other things of this sort. And particularly, Bill Clinton just had an interesting little, I think, event, a gaffe where he was effectively, while campaigning for Harris, basically criticized the idea of letting large numbers of immigrants in unvetted, and was referring to the Lake and Riley case where a student at the University of Georgia was killed by a Venezuelan illegal immigrant. Well, I think it's still illegal because I believe the way that Biden is handling immigration policy is illegal. So anyhow, and so that's kind of put a bit of a twist on the whole issue. And of course, he then tries to salvage the whole thing by by pointing out to this immigration bill that was that supposedly Trump had killed the bill, but that this bill was something good that should have been passed. So I kind of have to react to that again. The bill was really no good in my opinion. That's not to say that if you go look at the bill in detail, there aren't good elements in the bill. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, in aggregate, in total, it was a bad bill. And the main thing is it would let in nearly 2 million extra migrants per year. And we don't need 2 million people just randomly walking across the border every year. If we bring people in, we want to bring in people that we really want to be here, that have characteristics that makes them most suitable for employment productively in the United States, not just anybody who happens to get here for some reason. So I want to kind of go into a little bit that this bill, which is continuing used also by the Harris campaign as some kind of a campaign weapon against Trump, essentially, was part of a compromise effort anyhow that involved three different elements. One was the immigration element. The other was aid to Ukraine, which was the biggest element of it. And then the other was aid to Israel after the October 7th attack by Hamas. And the idea was that you had elements in the Senate particularly who basically there was no unanimity, let's put it this way. There were people who wanted aid to Israel. There were people who didn't want aid to Israel, such as Bernie Sanders and company. There were people who wanted the aid to Ukraine, and there were others that didn't. And then there were also people that wanted to do something on immigration. And so while it being touted, he was touting it as it was a Republican bill. Yes, Republicans were involved in the negotiation, but they lost the contest, basically. The key elements that they were holding out for, like reducing his ability to simply parole people, for instance, which is another major element of what's happened, was rejected by the Democrats. And eventually, in order to get the aid to Ukraine part through, they basically caved, in my opinion. I think that's the real reason. And the House had strong objections to this bill in the form it was in, and in fact had their own bill, which they'd already passed, called H.R. 2, which was a much stronger and much more effective immigration bill. So that's why this attack, in my opinion, is quite bogus, but people need to understand that. Well, if you like these videos, please give me a like. I appreciate that. It helps with the algorithm. Looking for more subscriptions, and thanks to all those who have been subscribing lately. And, of course, you can click the bell for notifications so that you'll have an email when I've posted another one. I post these on Rumble as well. And, by the way, I'm getting a lot of following on Rumble in the last couple of videos. So thanks a lot. Maybe that will become a bigger focus here. So anyhow, that's essentially the argument I'm making, that the thing was part of a compromise, and the H.R. 2 bill of the House, which the Senate refused to take up, and nobody's blaming them for not taking it up, which they should. My own opinion, of course, on the thing was that the House made a bit of a mistake by not taking up the bill and effectively modifying it by adding elements of H.R. 2, probably not the whole thing, but certain elements of it, and then passing it back again. After all, if we passed H.R. 2 to begin with, we ought to be able to pass this modified version, I would think. and in that case, we wouldn't be hit as effectively with these partisan attacks. But even as it is, yes, it wasn't just Trump was against it. I was against it. I think the most conservatives in the House was against it. If it had passed, if it had been passed, was mostly Democrat votes, I think. And even the degree to which there were elements that the Border Patrol liked, it was largely because there were benefits for the Border Patrol in it. But it was a cumbersome mess. And in fact, what's happened since then was once that failed, and as the immigration issue became to be a real killer for the Democrats, what's happened is that the Biden administration, using executive orders, which was what Trump used himself, was able to significantly reduce the immigration process. The second thing was, of course, the state of Texas put up some pretty strong resistance themselves with their various barriers and efforts that they were doing, which also contributed to the reduction. And finally, the administration, using its parole authority, has basically been flying people into the country that applied on a app that they created, and are just flying them into the country, and those don't count as part of the numbers getting in. So, in fact, the numbers are higher than quoted because those people really should be counted too. And I question the basis for doing such a thing that they're doing, but they are, and that's using this parole authority, which, remember, this was the area that the Republicans lost in the negotiations on this bill that Clinton is touting. So I think this is a very bogus presentation, and I hope that everybody realizes that, of course, Trump was the one that was strong on border security, and in fact, he was being fought all the way out through his 4 years by the Democrats, and they were trying to block everything he was doing with court challenges and failing to pass things he wanted through Congress and the like. So, and in fact, in spite of all that, he was eventually able to figure out how to actually get the wall being built, and the construction was going fairly well when, of course, his term expired and the Democrats canceled it, leaving and selling all the materials that had been procured for scrap. So for them trying to present that they're the strong border security people is such a farce, it's almost hard to believe anybody would take it seriously. But then that's the level of deception that most of the Democrat-controlled media puts out. But I think it's important, and that's why I'm making this video on this, to point out just how absolutely bogus their claim is. And hopefully everybody can see through that. So anyway, that's my pitch on that one. Now, another little sidelight was Tim Walz's attempt to show he was a real hunter and failed to effectively load his shotgun. I mean, if this reminds me a little bit of the one years ago when John Kerry was trying to show he was a real outdoorsman when he went to a place and said, "Is this where you go to get your hunting license?" Anyhow, another flop of the campaign. As I say, the basic trends in the polling are pretty much like there was in the last video. I haven't changed much at all. It looks like that all the 7 swing states are very close, with Trump slightly ahead in all but one, and only 3/10 on the average behind in the others. Of course, who knows what the reality will be. That suggests we should work harder and make sure we go out and vote, and try to encourage anybody, persuade any potential swing voter to come out and vote for Trump as well. And also, to wrap this up, I will mention a few things. I always like to cover the international geopolitical area a little bit. It looks like that the Biden administration has talked the Israelis out of attacking the oil production facilities that Iran has, probably not wanting a spike in the oil price during the final weeks of the election. And also, I think that there's be some international repercussions if that happened. That is the target they would be most effective at going after. And the nuclear targets, although I don't think it's as much that what he is saying as Biden as it is the fact that just how difficult those are to address. And so they're going to go after allegedly certain military targets, and we'll see how that plays out. I still think that's kind of a questionable issue. Can any of these military targets that Israel hits sufficiently degrade Iran's ability to strike back to make it worth the effort. Whereas I would still, as I've said before, prefer focusing on Lebanon and Hezbollah and knocking them out. They're the ones that are causing the most casualties anyhow. And I think also defending against what they're doing is probably cheaper than it would be to try to use long range interceptors to try to defend against the medium range ballistic missiles that the Iranians would be reacting with. And I'm sure they would retaliate. So I don't think that just a single strike back would actually stop the thing. And then on the Russia-Ukraine war front, it looks like the Russian offensive in the Kursk region has been underway for the past few days, and Russia seems to be winning that at the moment. They're gaining grounds and actually have apparently surrounded some of the Ukrainian troops. So that we'll see how that plays out. It looks like the time period of Russia waiting to respond there is finally over with, and it is October, like Putin said. So they are now dealing with that situation, and they're still advancing throughout the eastern Ukraine as well. You know, village by village, tree line by tree line. It's a slow slog, but it seems like it's happening. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. And I guess one thing's for sure is the administration is going to want to keep the thing going without changing policy, at least after the election. That's for sure. What happens after that is an open question, and we'll just have to wait for that development. So anyway, I'll wrap this up for now. As always, I'll be posting this on YouTube and on Rumble, and the addresses of my social media accounts are in the description below. So all for this time.